evening, everyone. Welcome back to Candid Conversations with a Housewife, and I am your favorite housewife, Mrs. Jenny. And so I hope you guys had a great week. I know I did. It was very productive, but thankfully my week ended on a good note. I got to relax today. I wasn't rushing today. And so I am all charged up for you guys tonight. We are in for a really good treat because this is something that I notice from time to time. I don't live in like a big city, like like a metropolitan type city, but I also don't live in the country either. I live, in the suburbs, and so this is not something that I deal with every single day, but it's something that I deal with enough to where I feel like it needs to be talked about, which is the homelessness crisis. And, a lot of people are saying a lot of things. They have a lot of opinions, a lot of different viewpoints as to how we can curb it, how we can mitigate it. Is there any solution at all? Like a grand solution? Um, is it these, designated areas for people to shoot up and, do their drugs, in their own little facility when they're being monitored? Is it, just to build more shelters or to put homeless people in hotels? I've seen that in my city. There was a hotel or a motel that got transferred into a homeless encampment. And so they did that. I've seen other cities do that. So a lot of people have a lot of things to say. They want to help. They just want to help no matter how they can figure it out. Um, and so let's see what God has to say about it because He is the great problem solver. And so His word is actually very plentiful on information about how to handle the homelessness crisis and how to handle people not working in general. And so we're going to touch on that. But like the title says, I am going to teach you guys how we could solve the problem, how we could completely eradicate homelessness in just about a week. And so, yes, I know it sounds very lofty, sounds exciting. You're like, Virginia, how is this possible? Well, you just sit tight, and you come along with me, and I'm going to show you exactly how. And so, yes. And so, starting off, we gotta understand, who we're talking about, get some numbers in our mind, kind of get some prefacing out of the way. And so when it comes to homelessness, there are about 52, 582,000 homeless people in America, approximately, And so of that group, about 64% of them are on either, abusing drugs or alcohol. And so, yes, a lot of these people, that is why they are homeless because they are alcoholics and, they get out of control, or they're drug addicts and they get out of control. And so, they can't keep a job, so therefore they can't afford a home. And then, they might steal from their family and friends. And so those people don't want to be around them. And so there's a lot of factors as to why people end up on the street. Because I'm sure that a lot of us, have been times in our lives where we didn't have enough money, or we were kind of, down on our luck, or, we just didn't really have all that we need to really make it stretch. But we would never end up on the street because we are the kind of people as to where we have friends and family who would help us and, be generous to us. Um, or we're just the kind of hustle, we have that kind of hustle mindset as to where, no matter what happens, we're just going to figure it out and make it work. And we're not going to end up like that. And so to be homeless is a very interesting predicament to be in. Um, and so it's important that we talk about it because, this is not just poverty, because there are a lot of people who are poor who are not homeless. So why are people homeless? And we're going to get into that. And so we have that number of the 582,000. And so I'm coming from the perspective of Christians. And if Christians were to just get their act together and get their butt in gear and to solve the homelessness crisis, then it would pretty much be solved um, primarily by them if they were to do what they are supposed to do. And so I got some stats on that, which is that about 63% of America considers itself Christian. And so, alongside Christians, a big part of that is churches. And so, there are about 380,000 churches in America. Now, of course, when we're talking about Christians and churches, take those terms with a grain of salt. We're just kind of theorizing right now, okay? Because of course, what I'm gonna express is not actually going to be implemented, and half the churches in America don't even really think that the Bible is the final authority. So of course we're theorizing. So just kind of play along. So yes, about 63% of America considers itself Christian, and Christians are supposed to go to church. And so there are about 380,000 churches in America. And so going off of those numbers, um, we as Christians could have a significant impact in the homelessness crisis if we were to do what God has said to do when it comes to people who refuse to work or for people who are idle and lazy. And so, yes, as Christians, we are the majority. We allegedly live in a Christian country, right? Isn't that what they say? America's a Christian country, or at least it used to be. And so when we have these humongous societal problems that people talk about, then why shouldn't we try to see what we can do to help and mitigate the problem? And so, um, it can start with Christians, and it eventually trickle down to the unsaved world. But as Christians, we can be the change that we want to see, and we can have a lot more effect than we actually think that we can. Um, but before we jump right into day number one, which is Sunday, because I'm going to take you day by day and step by step as to how we are going to cure homelessness with each day and what happens in those days. But yes, so before I jump right into all that, I'm going to acknowledge the chat. And in Grooming and Reviews 101, he says, hey, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for viewing. And EAE, one of my favorite fans, he says, lots of space that could be used for housing and hospitals is wasted on cemeteries. Interesting perspective. Not where I thought we'd be going, but hey, but that, of course, that's for a whole other candid conversation. But I believe in the idea of being buried. I think that it's the preferred way. I don't like the symbolism and the idea and the visuals behind being cremated, but that's just me. And so, but maybe we could do it in a different way. Cemeteries, build cemeteries in a different way, or just kind of maximize the space. So, I think that there's different ways we could go about it to save space. Because yeah, and then there's a lot of space that's on Earth that's wasted on like nature preserves and places that they're trying to preserve the environment where people could be living. Um, things that like they're trying to just lock it off and close it off because it's parks or it's just free to the public or things like that. Like, and then like I'm pretty sure people like aren't even allowed to go to Antarctica or something. Like I feel like I heard that somewhere. So there are a lot of places that are like closed off to people where they shouldn't be. But at the end of the day, most people, everybody in the entire world could fit inside of America. And so the issue is not really land space, but it's people being greedy and selfish, and also people just kind of not wanting to branch out and wanting to stay with what they know and not wanting to go to different places because people they talk about, oh, housing is so expensive. Well, out in podunk, middle America, just way out in Montana, Oklahoma, like my mom, she lives in Oklahoma, and houses out there, they're really inexpensive. You can buy something that is a home. you know it has four walls, has heating, cooling, might not be central, but it'll keep you out of the cold, and you can get that really inexpensive. So it's not really an issue as much with the land spacing and not having space for people, but it is just people not wanting to really branch out. People like big cities, people like the idea of being around a lot of other people. um, and so yeah, I think that's a bigger problem, but thank you, EAE, for your comment. Grooming and Reviews 101, he says, FYI, I was homeless one time. Well, if you want to, then I would love to hear about that, hear about why that was. You can, um, Black Men Unfiltered, if you want to drop the link, then I can have, people join me up here and talk to me about their experiences with the homeless or if they were homeless. Um, but if you don't want to come up here, then just leave in the chat if you would like your experience with homelessness and as to why that came about. EAE says, don't read. Okay, never mind. um, but Daft Bully, hello, Daft Bully, says, our government gave away $75 billion to Ukraine. They say that amount alone could have fixed homelessness in this country 200 times over. I did not know that. I had heard. Well, I had heard half of that. I had heard that our government had given away $75 billion, but I didn't know that they said that that could have cured homelessness. But that doesn't surprise me. Our government is not only wicked as hell, but because they're so wicked, they are extremely incompetent. So and they hate us. We're ruled by people who despise us. Um, and so that's a problem. But thank you, Daft Bully, for your comment. Lost in translation. All right. Oh, and I have a response to you. So don't let me forget to respond to you on Instagram. I have a response. But he says, "Hey Jenny, hey, hope you're having a great Saturday night." Grooming and Reviews 101 says, Black Man Unfiltered, you have my email. He says, "I'd like to talk about it." Yeah, please do. Let us know because I think that it's valuable information. As many anecdotal stories that we can get. That's how you build a statistic. One person at a time. EAE says Earth is for the living. Limited land shouldn't be wasted on centuries when homelessness exists. Oh, I think you meant to say cemeteries. But yeah, I absolutely agree. Um, we shouldn't have an excess amount of land for cemeteries when land is for the living. Um, and so it's to be inhabited. That's why God created the world. He says in the Bible that He created it to be inhabited. And so to fill it up with dead bodies is a waste of space. um, Alex P. Keaton, he says Ukraine spending has nothing to do with spending on homeless. Um, well, it doesn't directly, but $75 billion is $75 billion, and so why would we spend even $1 on foreign affairs? You know, meddling in other people's wars when we have born and raised Americans who are struggling and need help. Um, and so, yeah, Ukraine really doesn't affect homeless people, but the money that we sent over there certainly does. And so, yeah, Alex once again says California spends quite a bit on homelessness, yet continues to see the highest rates of homelessness. That's a fact, and that's because you know, funding and money it plays a part into it, but that is not the cure for it. Um, but yeah, so going back to speaking of the cure, let's get back to our template, and then I'll read some more comments in a bit. But before I jump in, I want to read a verse, which is 1 Peter 4:17, and this is in the King James, of course, and it says, "For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of the Lord, of the house of God, and it is, and if it first begin at us, what shall the end of them be that obey not the gospel of God?" And so, as a Christian, the judgment should begin at the house of God. It should begin with us. And we need to judge what's going on right now. And we need to, exercise judgment on what's going on and render a verdict and say, this is unacceptable. We have a lot of big cities that are turning into, you know, Night of the Walking Dead. These zombified drug addicts are just kind of shuffling along and laying out on the street and defecating in public areas. And it should not be tolerated. There are enough Christians, people calling themselves Christians in America that if we claim to be Christian, we should obey the Bible, we should listen to the Bible, and the Bible speaks enough about this that we should not tolerate this and that we should do something about it. And so, starting on Sunday, it's the beginning of the week, the world, God's anointing has just, fallen over all the churches in America, just, ride along with me, y'all. We're theorizing right now. And so, God has just spoken over his people. And all the pastors in America, no matter what they no matter what they had originally planned to speak on, they are now all deciding to speak on homelessness. And so every church in America, this one random Sunday, is that they're all going to speak on homelessness. And they're all going to speak not their opinions and not what the world wants them to say, but what the Bible says about homelessness. And so, being that Christians are, what did I say, 63% of America, that is about 210 million people. So, the 210 million people that are in America that are claimed to be Christians, all pour into their churches, and they're all hearing God's word being thundered forth from a man of God. And so, here are the kind of things that they would hear. And shout out to Brother Daniel 1611. Says here to support Sister Jenny. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And he gives the first verse that I was going to give, which is, if a man doesn't work, neither should he eat. And that is in Second Thessalonians. And I'm going to be reading Second Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 10 through 14, which say, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you, if any would not work, neither should he eat. Okay? You hear that? Now hold on to that, because we're not finished with that. We're going to come back to that quite often. For we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. Now them that are such we command and exhort by our Lord Jesus Christ, that with quietness they work and eat their own bread. But ye, brethren, be not weary in well doing. And if any man obey not our word by this epistle, note that man, and have no company with him, that he may be ashamed. And so this is very strong language, speaking about people who refuse to work, speaking about people who are lazy, people who are idle. The Bible, God, he hates that. He hates idleness. He hates slothfulness. There's a parable that Jesus speaks of about talents, and how one person gets 10 talents and reaps more, another person gets 5 talents and reaps more, and one person got 1 talent and didn't do anything with it, but he buried it in the ground. And Jesus said, you wicked and unprofitable serpent. And so God is not a fan of people who are lazy. And it's a sin. And so that is a verse that a lot of pastors are not speaking on anymore. Because I'm sure that, okay, so I not only grew up in church, but I currently go to church. I know people who go to churches, different types of churches. There's a church right in front of my house. So I have a plethora of experience with churches simping for these homeless people and coddling these homeless people and giving them shelter and giving them food and giving them showers. And I even remember, gosh, this was like years and years ago, back when I was like still in high school, I think. I did this thing it wasn't at my church, it was through my church, where we would sign up to help the homeless people. And we would sign up to stay, and supervise them at different times. And so, there would be someone there from like 12 a.m. to like 7 a.m., someone from 7 a.m. to like 4 p.m., 4 p.m. to like 12 p.m., or something like that, like just those different shifts. And I did that for a few years. And I remember from the first time that I did it to maybe the last time, like I think I did it 3 times altogether, like 3 different years. And you would not believe how many of the same people I saw in that program. The same people just shuffling in every year, can't get it right, can't get their stuff together, unprofitable servants. And it's like, these churches, they're coddling them. And they think that they're helping people. Oh, we're reaching down, we're helping people, we're doing God's work, we're being charitable. No, stop doing that. You're hurting these people. What you're doing at the end of the day is that you're enabling them, and you're really not doing them any favors, because a man is going to be miserable if he does not work. And so a lot of the people that were in there were men, which is another thing. People want to talk about, oh, we need to help the homeless because it's, single mothers and old people and veterans. No. Let me tell you something, friends. The reality of it is that it's a lot of able-bodied, war-aged men who are in these homeless shelters and who are being accepting of these handouts from these churches and from these shelters. And it's a disgrace and it needs to come to an end. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We have some more verses to cover. Brother Daniel says that they busybodies because their body ain't busy. That's good. I like that. Proverbs 31:27 says, and if you're familiar with the Bible, then you'll remember that Proverbs 31 is a chapter about the virtuous woman. The Proverbs 31 woman is like the caricature of the ideal woman. Like she is the gold standard of a wife. She is what every man would should want to aspire to marry. She's just she is the almighty woman in the sense. And so I remember of course hearing a lot about this, reading about this a lot when I was single, striving to be this kind of woman. And let me tell you what it says about the almighty wife and the picturesque wife. Let's see what it says about how she acts and if she's willing to work. And it says Proverbs 31:27 says, She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. And so what it's figurative language, it's poetic language saying that she doesn't eat the bread of idleness. But this is saying that she is not someone who just, all day, every day, she's kicking her feet up, eating her bonbons, watching soap operas, and just waiting for her husband to come home and hand her over a stack of money so she can just be lazy and do nothing, you know? And this is coming from someone who believes in traditional, gender roles. So I believe that the wife should be at home. I believe that her place is to, serve her husband and not necessarily be out in the world working. um, you know, if the husband has his own business and the wife, works in her husband's business, then of course that's appropriate. But I don't believe in this whole like, both people work a full time job, both people go out, earn their own money, and all that, stuff. I don't. I'm not saying that that. When it says that she works, there's a lot of work to be done at home. Like earlier I was saying that I had a really peaceful day and I had a really easy day, but I was still at home working. I did some laundry. I swept. I had to sweep my hard floors, and then I had to sweep my carpet because we had some dogs stay over last week that tore up one of our bedrooms, and so I had a lot of stuff to sweep up in there. I was organizing. I was cleaning out the fridge. I was cooking. I mean, I'm still. I'm not. I didn't go really out of the house today and do a whole lot outside the house, but I'm still working. And so it's not good enough to be a woman and think that you can get a pass on being lazy either. You're like, yeah, but men need to go out and work. If a man doesn't work, a man shouldn't eat. No, 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 no. It doesn't say that. It says that that if there are any that would not work, neither should they eat. Neither should he eat. And so, yes, a man or a woman, men and women have a responsibility to work and be productive. God gives Adam the responsibility of tending to his garden. He gives him work before he ever gets cursed by sin. So sin is not a four-letter word in that sense. It's not a bad thing. Work is good. Work is healthy, and it's good for people. People feel better. Working releases endorphins. If you're doing something that you don't absolutely hate, you know. But it's good. It's productive. You're being a contributing member of society when you're working. And so I wanted to bring that verse up because this is not some kind of going easy on women message right now that yeah, men need to go out and work 15-hour days and women just need to be at home looking cute. No, women need to be working too. um, and so these homeless women that are out here begging, you know, with their fake bellies and their empty carriages, their empty strollers, lying to people, pretending that they're, mothers and single mothers and all this stuff. Um, you know, they need to be out working too. Especially if they don't have a man to take care of them, then you need to be out, physically working and earning money. Amen. And so our next verse, well, the next verse that people would hear, under our hypothetical scenario of everybody who is a Christian going to church and every pastor of those churches preaching about homelessness, the next thing that they would hear is from Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 18, which says, by much slothfulness, and slothfulness is to be like a sloth. And what is a sloth? It's like the world's slowest animal. And so to be moving really slowly, slothfully, that's not a good thing. So it says, by much slothfulness the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through. So I don't know about you, but if your building is decaying and your house is dropping through, it sounds like you don't have a house. It sounds like you're going to be homeless. So if you're lazy and you're idle and you're not taking care of your stuff, you're going to end up homeless. That's what the Bible says, folks. Don't take it up with me. Take it up with the author of the Bible. And another good passage that they would hear, from our sermon for, homelessness would be Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 49, which says, "Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom, pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy." And so, yes, so this is talking about how, um, the iniquity of Sodom, and so Sodom, talking about like Sodom and Gomorrah, those two cities. um, and it's saying that one of the things that was wrong with it, because it wasn't just that homosexuality was the problem. It was full of sin. It was full of all unrighteousness in those cities. That's why God destroyed them. And so one of the problems that was there among the multitude was that they were idle. They had an abundance of idleness, and they did not help the poor and the needy. And so there are legitimate poor people. There are people who are actually poor, people who actually need help, people who are disabled, physically or mentally. A woman might have 4 kids and then her husband dies or her husband runs off on her. And, she was a stay at home wife and now she doesn't have anything. There are legitimate reasons for people being down and out and people not having their needs met. But you do not get to, what's the number? 582,000 by those few circumstances, okay? There's a lot of people who are just refusing to work. They're lazy, they're drunks, they're idle, and God is angry at them. And so we do not need to be helping these people if they refuse to even help themselves. And so those are the kind of things, those are the kind of verses that they would hear in that sermon about homelessness, if it was coming forth from the churches. And so this is the King James. And so I don't know how the new versions mangle these verses. I don't know how they twist them and flip them on their heads, because I'm sure they do. um, but also that's another thing, is that if these churches were preaching from the King James and getting that solid word of God, then there would be a reason why people would get some fire lit under them, and that they would get serious. And so before we jump to Monday and what would happen Monday as a result of Sunday's preaching, we're going to go back to the comments. And Brother Daniel, he says, "I've been seeing the same homeless people on the same corner for years. They don't want help. They want drugs." Yes, yes. I mean, if you live in a certain area, because I've only been living where I live right now for the past year. So so over the course of a year, I've seen a lot of these people, these regular bums. Because like I said earlier, I live across the street from a church. And the church that I live across the street from feeds these homeless people like twice a week or 3 times a week. And so you see, over the past year, I've seen like a handful of these exact same people coming each time, getting they're getting these grocery carts. I don't know, if they're stealing the grocery carts or whatever, and they're bringing their card and they're, getting their food and they're coming back. And it's like, when are you going to get a job? When are you going to get your own money? When are you going to get your own bread? Like the Bible says. It's a disgrace. Full able-bodied men begging. EAE says, "Well, soon, quote unquote, work as we know it will be a thing of the past thanks to artificial intelligence and technology. Bill Gates predicted a 3-day work week in the near future." I don't know. I've heard about that. I've been hearing a lot about that, of course, with, um, you know, artificial intelligence taking over the world and, replacing people and making humans and human work obsolete. Um, I think that if you have one of these foo-foo jobs, then yeah, you better be shaking in your boots. But because people always say like, oh, these OnlyFans girls, like they need to stop doing that, and learn how to code and learning code, and that's like the thing that people need to do now, and that's how people need to spend their time is learning how to code. And it's like a computer can do that. I don't know what the coding is, okay? So I might be showing my ignorance, but that seems like something that could be outsourced with a computer after at a certain time. But like what I did for a long time, back when I was working, is that I was a nail technician. And so being a nail technician, that's not something that you can ever fully outsource to a robot, because half of the job is not painting nails. Half of the job is just talking to people about their problems and consoling them. And so, I mean, there are some people who would be crazy enough to, let some robot paint their nails and, confide in ET, or not ET, but confide in, a robot. But, that's really not, I don't, when it comes to more manual jobs, more customer service jobs, those are the really valuable ones. Like, I don't really ever foresee a future where you're gonna have a robot under your sink installing your plumbing, or you're gonna have a robot installing your lights. I don't really see that happening. So if you have a job like that, like those really manual, like labor intensive jobs, those aren't going anywhere. You're not gonna be outsourced by Wall E anytime soon if you're a lumberjack, or if you're a gardener or something like that. So I think that people need to get these really manual jobs and, make themselves valuable again. Um, let's see here. Brother Daniel says, I saw a video of a guy pretending to be in a wheelchair and he makes $100,000 a year cash. Yes, I haven't seen that video, but I'm sure it exists. Um, I've seen other videos of these fake homeless people. Like I saw this one where this woman, she pulled up in her car. So she had a car, okay, and it was nice looking. It wasn't some jalopy. So she pulls up in her car, gets out, goes to the passenger side, and starts pulling out like accessories. Like pulls out a wig, pulls out a big shawl, pulls out a pregnant one of those fake strap-on bellies. Goes to her trunk, gets out her stroller, puts a blanket over the stroller. There's nothing in the stroller. There's nothing in her stomach. There's nothing in the stroller. It's all an act. It's all fake. Pulls out her cardboard sign and walks just a few yards over and sets up shop on the corner. And who knows how much she makes? It's crazy. And I remember I used to be, I was never like a liberal, but I used to be someone who would, give money to people and give them my spare change, give them $1, if I was really feeling generous. Yeah, I used to do that. And then I don't remember what my, conversion day was when I realized that it was all a hoax, and a lot of people are liars and just lazy and they refuse to work. But after a while I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't this doesn't seem right to me. You know, these people that, come out and they beg for this money, like I don't think that's right. And I think it was because I'm sure I probably, watched something about it, like watched someone be exposed or something. But also, like, before I got married, I struggled a lot with my money. Like I was really bad with my money. And so there'd be times when I would get my things cut off because I didn't like have the money, like my phone or something. And so, but I always had that kind of mindset of I'm gonna hustle and I'm gonna figure it out and I'm gonna get it back, because I always made enough money, but I just wasted it. So, anyways, so I just kind of always had that mindset of like I'm gonna work and I'm gonna get because I need. And so I just feel like the older I got, the more it disgusted me that these people who are older than me didn't do the same thing. And I'm like, why am I working and hustling when you're laying on your rear end and begging for money? Mm-mm, that is not the way. Alex Keaton, he says capitalism naturally produces a percentage of people who will be unemployed. There will never be a 0% unemployment. To claim God wants people to work and ignore the reality of modern economics is misleading. Okay, Alex. Um, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that. I mean, capitalism is the system that has lifted more people out of poverty than any other economic system. Um, and it doesn't. I mean, there's nothing inherent about capitalism that would make a certain percentage of the population to stay unemployed. Like, there's enough to go around. So I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but I don't know if Black Man Unfiltered dropped the link, but feel free to call in and we can talk about it some more. Alex also says that Sodom and Gomorrah was unnecessary genocide. Sin continued and innocent children were destroyed. Oh, well, that's where you're wrong. It was absolutely necessary because their hearts and their deeds were wicked all the day long, and the cries of the innocent people that were there, lifted up to the Lord, and it disgusted him, and it made him infuriated, and so it was completely justified and necessary. And at the way we're going, it's looking like it's going to come back soon, and it wouldn't be the worst thing ever. It wouldn't be totally undeserved. Um, And so, yeah, if we continue the way that we're acting and the way that we're letting things go on, then it wouldn't surprise me if we were getting some fire and brimstone. But that's not going to happen because God said He wouldn't do that anymore. Oh no, I'm thinking about the flood, but that's not going to happen until like the end time. Anyways, Tough Guy says, "What's up, Jenny? Hey, Tough Guy, glad you can make it." EAE says, believe it or not, there are already machines that paint nails, and I can envision one that can also cut hair. Yeah, I've seen like some machine that like you put your fingers in it and it paints them, and it can like even do designs and stuff. But see, that's only half the job. The other half of the job is going and relaxing, and there are so many times when I've done like big parties of women where they come with their friends, and it's a social event. That's the thing about getting your hair and your nails done. It's just as much social as it is utilitarian, because a lot of times you can go somewhere and get your hair done better, or you can get it at a cheaper price. But if you really like those people, then you'll go to that certain place because you like them and you want to see them, and that's a lot of the reason why you're going. And so that can't be outsourced to technology. That is always going to have to be a real person. Grooming and Reviews 101 says, like the Gold Digger Show. Oh, okay. So I guess someone else did a show on a similar topic. Well, that's good. We need as many people as we can talking about this and raising awareness about the sham that is our modern day homelessness epidemic. And Tarus said, just because capitalism happens to be the best system we have doesn't mean perfect or immune from criticism. Yeah, it is the best system, and I'm not saying that it's completely, you should never criticize it. But what I am saying is that what go where are you going to go from it? If you're admitting that it's the best system, then go if you but hello, who are you?
Grooming.
Okay, well, thank you for
You're breaking up on my side.
thank you for tuning in.
You're welcome. I've been a fan of the channel for a while. Most people don't recognize me without my locks of hair, and just donated it today.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I
How long?
donated 15 inches.
Oh, okay, so that was what, like down your back?
Pretty much. Yeah, I had a little man bun, and I thought I will donate it and jump on for a few minutes and tell you my story why I was homeless at one time.
Okay, yeah, you have the floor.
Well, it was about 3 years ago, actually. Right when COVID started, I was dating a woman, and all of a sudden things went to the south really fast, to the point she was alcoholic and violent. Um, Speed up the process. She got very violent one night, threw a garden scissor at me, and I probably talked about this on my channel and BMU channel before. But what I have not spoke about was after she threw the garden scissor at me, the cops showed up. My neighbors called the cops. Cops didn't do anything. They said nothing we can do about it. And I looked at him like, if this was the way around, if I hit her, I would be in handcuffs already.
That's right.
Next minute I knew, I was homeless for about 3 months, going from a hotel to hotel. The worst part about that was with my mother and my dog. We were going hotel to hotel. I blew out all my life savings in that process. where we're eating McDonald's, where we're eating junk food, whatever we can find. Try to save money so when we find an apartment, and when people were asking me when I was looking at apartments, by the way, where do you live? We need your landlord's reference. Like, I don't have a landlord. Try to explain to the store, like, you're homeless? Sorry, we can't rent to you because you're homeless.
Hmm.
Yeah. Not because of credit, not because of money, because they thought I was homeless. I could not afford the rent.
But you didn't. But surely they still asked you for your your pay stubs or
Hmm.
things like that, right?
Yeah, I was actually a good employer. I was working for the local hospital here as a dietary cook, chef, and there wasn't they were thinking I was not paying. I was spending my money on something else, so they felt like, oh, I was evicted. I was never evicted. I was kicked out because
Right.
of my situation at the moment.
That's weird. I mean, I don't know if that's common or not, but it just seems strange because
For men, it's
if
actually
you
very common. For women, they're being with living a woman, and next minute they're homeless because of a relationship going bad. It's very common, believe it or not.
oh no, yeah, I'm sure that part is common, but what
Mhm.
I'm surprised is they that they said that, oh, you were probably evicted. But if you get evicted, then that shows up on your credit, so they would be able to prove it. And then if you had good credit and if you had pay stubs, and
So
it's like,
according to
why?
them, at the time, it takes a while to show up on your credit. So they don't
Oh,
know how long, how long that it was. Like, was it recently or was it months ago? So at the point, we don't see anything. My credit score was at 750 at the time. So it wasn't like I had bad credit. It was decent. I had everything. I thought I had my life together at the point. To be honest, till that happened, I'm like, guess not. I gotta get things situated here. But homelessness is actually a very problem, not in the United States, all over the place. I'm originally from Greece. I see so many property we can use for making like a Section 9 area for people to live, but they don't. They usually just leave them to rot away. Why are we doing that?
mm, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, well, I don't know what the situations are overseas and what things cause people to be homeless over there. I mean, I'm sure that they're similar because we're all one people.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, there are different reasons as to why people are homeless. But so what I'm saying with the stream is that the bulk of our homeless people, the people that were at the shelter that the church that I volunteered at, and people that you just see that are just year after year, and you're always on the street. It's like these are people who just either refuse to work. At the end of the day, they just refuse to work, or they are just so cracked out on drugs and addicted to alcohol that they can't pull themselves out of that to sustain a productive lifestyle.
And that is a serious problem. I was down in Philly about 2, 3 months ago, and when you think of Philly, you're thinking a very nice area, a brother to love, Rocky Steps, all that stuff. If you go to during North or South Philly, you better bring your firearm. That's how bad it
Mm.
is. I literally dropped a friend of mine asked me to drop somebody off for them because they couldn't go. He says, "I feel like, I don't worry about it, whatever. I did it for a favor." On the way back, I stopped for gas. I'm looking around like, why do I get a feeling I'm going to get shot here? I walked into the gas station to pay, and the guy who owned the gas station had an armed guard with an AR-15 ready to go. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
As I'm driving through the area to get back on the highway, it reminded me of World War Z. Literally, potholes, cars flipped over, end of the earth situation. And I didn't see more trash. And I'm originally from New York, so I'm used to seeing the hood. I'm used to the projects. This intimidated me that I used to grow. I just grew up in that stuff. I remember going to Jamaica, Queens, and like people getting shot right and left. I'm like, it was another Tuesday. It wasn't a thing for me. When I saw that, that scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, it sounds like you left, Philadelphia and went to Iraq. I mean, good grief.
He literally, like, I can't even imagine that ever in my life in the United States, seeing cars flipped over, potholes size of a grenade, something blew up. I'm like thinking to myself, what the hell happened here? And I started talking to people that I know from Philly. Like, Philly has become so bad with drugs. The cops have let go. The government have let go. Now, if you go Central Philly, beautiful area, but you need to better have a freaking 3 or 4 jobs or 4 the apartment because they're so
Oh,
expensive. They're more than a house. I'm like, it's that bad.
oh wow, that's crazy. It sounds like it's pretty on par with like San Francisco.
I'm not sure about Francisco. I'm not familiar what's going on down that area. But New York area, Francisco, I can tell. Not Francisco. I'm sorry. Philly, PA, New Jersey. I can tell you what's going on. It's getting pretty bad everywhere. I don't care what part of the states you're from. It's horrible anywhere you go.
Yeah, yeah. And thankfully, I don't live in like a big city like I was saying earlier, but I so I don't see, like that level of depravity that comes with, those drugs and the homelessness. But I'm sure that it's growing and it's encroaching on different societies because I'm sure your friends who live in Philly, you know maybe just as early as 20 years ago, it wasn't like that.
Yeah,
It was
I'll
it
give
was
you a better
still
example. Like, okay, I where I live is not like a big city. It's Strasbourg, PA. It's like a country almost. And now, if you go towards Philly and area like that, and I was speaking to my priest about this, and my priest said to me, he was originally from Philly. He prays before he goes. That's how bad it gets.
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Hello, Taruz. How are you this evening?
I'm good. Good evening. Grooming, good to see you, man.
Hey, brother, how are you, man? Haven't seen you in a while.
I've been busy, man. You know how it is. So just because capitalism, which I'm a capitalist, like I love the system, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. And it doesn't mean it's immune from criticism. So, like, if we bring up an issue with regards to American capitalism as it relates to this crisis, it doesn't automatically mean we want the entire system thrown away, right?
Right.
Right. So that's why I comment the way I commented because I was like, well, just because we got a certain, just because it's the best system doesn't mean it can't be made better. You know what I mean? Just because you got a really nice car doesn't mean it can't be tuned better. Just because you got a really nice house doesn't mean it can't. There's certain things that can't be updated to make it more valuable. You get what I mean? And so, like with the thing with homelessness, that's why for one, I can't ever chalk it up to, there's always a certain percentage of people, yes, who are just, let's just be clear, every percentage is going to have their bums, right? For lack of a better term. The reality is that in this country, it's far too easy to lose everything and not have any rebound compared to a lot of other countries who per capita are worth a lot more than us. Um, with grooming, for example, there's so many different ways that's got nothing to do with financial literacy or being bad with your finances that you could just end out on the street just like that, right? And it's almost like it's no one's fault, but you could end out on the street so fast. Yet, in order to even qualify to get back into an apartment, you can afford, you got to jump through hoops. It's the big hypocrisy here in America because capitalism says what? Yeah, we want you to have a bachelor's degree, but even though you're only 22 out of college, we want you to have 10 years on your resume. Well, how you want people to have the degree, the experience? How do you want people to do that, right? Well, figure it out. And so, like, there's things with capitalism specifically that it absolutely can be fixed, and it's slightly broken.
Okay. Yeah, I agree that, the system is not perfect, but what I was saying was the response to Alex Keaton. Their comment was saying that capitalism naturally produces a percentage of people who will be unemployed, to which I was just refuting that because capitalism doesn't mean that you're going to have any percentage of people who are inherently going to be unemployed. I don't see where that logic is coming from. So,
Oh yeah,
there.
because capitalism's root is based in competition, and in competition, inherently, someone has to lose.
Okay, I mean, yeah,
I
to
mean,
a certain
it's baked into the system.
yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, there will always be winners and losers, but there to not be homeless, you don't have to be necessarily a big winner. You just have to be someone who's competent. And so, we're talking about people who are just not, because they're talking about people who are unemployed. And so, there's no reason for anyone to be unemployed who wants to have a job. So, anyone who is unemployed is someone who is choosing to be unemployed.
You really believe that?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, they might make excuses for themselves as to why they're unemployed, as to say, oh, well, it's because of my race, it's because of my gender, it's because of X, Y, and Z. But, people have done more with less. And so whatever you, because like you were saying that in other countries, they have certain safety nets that are in place to make sure that you don't just kind of get tossed out on the street and have nothing. And that might be true, but with America, the benefit is that we have a lot of opportunity. So you might, bankrupt and you might, be out on the street, but you can bounce back on your own and not have to, have government handouts in America, and you can just rebuild and restart, and it's the land of opportunity. And so to be unemployed is 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 on you.
I'm going to jump in here for a second here, because you said, gender, race, and all that stuff has not to do anything with your job. I'm going to respectfully disagree and explain why. Recently, I applied to a certain job, and the chef called me back, and he says, "You're qualified for the job, but there's only one big problem." I go, "Okay, what is the problem?" He goes, "I don't hire white people." Straight up like that. And I was like shocked. If I had the money, would I go with a lawyer? Yeah, I probably would. But how can I prove that? It was his word versus mine at the point. Think about it. You do get still to this day, and it disgusts me because I have a lot of friends, mixed races. I have Spanish friends. I have black friends. I have Asian friends. I have, you name it, I have the kind of friends that we still judge each other at a job level of where your background comes from. If you're Greek, if you're Asian, if you're black, if you're Mexican, if you're whatever. Why? Let me ask you a question, both of you guys. If you slice your arm, what comes out of it?
Blood,
Blood.
Where's the blood come from originally?
arteries.
Christ. I was answering, looking for God. If you're religious,
Oh,
that's what I believe. If you cut yourself, we all come from one God. Doesn't matter if you're Christian, Orthodox, or Muslim, whatever. End of the day is one God out there. I think we all can agree with that. Maybe we have different versions of it, but we believe in one God. Why are we so goddamn fucking racist, though?
Well, it's because people are evil. People are bad, and they have prejudice and pride, and they hate other people for silly reasons. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, we shouldn't have those meaningless differences, coming between us. And it's a disgrace that someone would not hire you because you're white, and I wouldn't even. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm looking at you on camera. I haven't seen you in person, but you don't even look white to me. But anyway, um,
I
but
think Tyra
yeah.
can
So
agree with that. I am actually the whitest goddamn son of a bitch he's ever met.
okay. Um, but well, yeah. So I mean, in that scenario, you couldn't get that specific job due to racism, but you're still not unemployed.
Nope.
So at the end of the day, there's always gonna be a job available. It might not be the best paying, or it might not be what you want to do, but for someone to be on the street and not having any money coming in, not working in any regard to make money, then that's because they choose to do that because they're lazy.
Right, man. But doesn't that ignore the reality that also in this country we have a lot of people who are working, because just because you're working doesn't, unemployment and homelessness doesn't go hand in hand. Like right now, especially with the rent crisis we have in this country, people have literally just been priced out of the area they've lived at all their lives. Right. At some point, you can't just chalk everything up to, well, you're just not competent enough. Right. Like
Right.
if you're in an area like California or New York, you're already going to deal with a high cost of living simply because it's a tourist destination, amongst a whole bunch of other different things. But then you have the rent constantly increasing, despite the fact that the job you have isn't increasing the wages annually to match that rate of inflation or the rent prices. So
Hmm.
at that point, that's where capitalism is supposed to go. Okay, well, we need to pay you more. But our capitalism says, nah, we ain't got to pay you more.
Here's my pushback on this. I agree and disagree. I agree that we should get paid. We have a crisis rental. My pushback is the rent has gotten out of control to a point, but nobody's regulating it. Why? Like, in my for example, where I've been living 4 years. Every year, my rent has been going up $100. Started at 14, I'm all up to 1,600. Their reason is because I'm so close to New York. I'm an hour away from New York. Okay, but that shouldn't have a factor. I've been here for. I keep renewing my contract with you. Why should it go up? Oh well. They tell me you live in a complex. This is the deal with it.
So, grooming, the answer directly to your question is we live in a free market capitalistic economy where business are allowed to run and charge however they see fit. Right. And so the reason why it's not regulated is because every time somebody tries to regulate it, the other side calls them socialist commies because any sort of regulation is considered bad.
I can see what you're saying with that. I do understand what you're saying, but my personal opinion, I think it should be regulated. Except if you're renting from a private home, that's a whole different conversation, obviously. But if it's in a complex like I live in an apartment complex, I think those should be regulated.
I agree with you. I have a whole bunch of different ideas how homelessness can be addressed. It's never going to go away, but it could definitely be mitigated. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah,
Um, but the thing is, it's like we got to remember we live in a society where we live in a monopsony, right? We got so many of these giant corporations that own so much of the wealth and the opportunity. And we forget that in this country, without regulations, corporations have proven time and time again that if they don't have to pay the American worker a living wage, they won't. You know what I mean? Because free market capitalism allows these corporations to go where, grooming? It allows them to go to Vietnam. It allows them to go to China. It allows them to go to Bangladesh and India and the Philippines. Why? Because to not allow businesses to go overseas, that's socialism, bro.
see, that's funny you say that because obviously, like I mentioned before, I'm a chef. I work mostly in nursing homes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I literally had to hand my 2 weeks notice. I go, I'm out. He goes, okay, what can you take? You're like, I go, money force. That's what the word revolves off. But we just got a raise and increase. I can't do nothing about it. Then I guess you're going to fail fast because
Yeah.
it was during COVID. Wait for this. They literally set me down like, how about we bumped you to 18 from 14 to 18? I go, I can stay then. But I had to make that threat because I knew they couldn't get anybody in the door. The problem we're in my field right now, we are the lowest in history right now that the job market is so open. You can literally walk into any restaurant and get a job like that. But the problem still is they do not want to raise the wages.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's already bad because you're in an industry where the restaurant industry, what is it? 50% of all restaurants are guaranteed to fail. Out the gate.
more,
Yeah,
like
something more than
70.
that. Out the gate, you're already destined to fail. And then, but all these issues been exacerbated by COVID, because what everybody saw was how incompetent our government is, because certain parts of certain states locked down and government just told people they figure it out. You saw all the other Western countries, the socialist countries, it's like, yeah, we're gonna lock you down, but we're gonna take care of your bills. Don't worry about it. Look how many people went into bankruptcy and crap like that here in America. You know what I mean? Like it just sucks, man.
People don't realize the first day a restaurant opens, on day one, when you open your doors, you're in the red about 20 to 30K easily. And that is being lightly, I'm being it. So you to recover from that, A, you need a very good investor, or B, you need to have an incredible opening, and you know you're going to make at least 20, 30K in the first week to get out of the red. Most likely you won't.
But if you're able to open a business, you're in a pretty good shape, as far as I'm sure you got somewhere to live. What about the people, again, on the ground, the actual chefs who rely on that employment? Even if they're employed, they're not making enough to cover even the lowest rent amount, right? Because we forget how many people we got living in one apartment, 4 or 5 deep.
I see that all the time.
You
I
know
literally
what
just
I
had this
mean?
conversation with somebody else, and like, they had to have, they're renting the rooms for 200-300, maybe 500 max, just to survive. Look at the cars. Here's a great example. I got in an accident a few months, and like I got right getting in a car. And, like, the interest rate is ridiculous. Like, I cannot wait to hit a year on that thing so I can refinance the son of a bitch. That's how high it is. First time I pay a car over 400. I'm paying over 650 a month now on it. That's a lot for a car.
Oh yeah, man. There's people with pickup trucks that pay more than what I pay, man. That's crazy.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
But back to the original, like most people going into business, they're in the red. It's very few businesses like I don't know, maybe a barber shop, for example. They may not be in the red the first couple weeks, but eventually they're going to be, because they need the clientele to keep coming in. That is a problem. People don't know the risk you're doing when you're opening a business.
Well, and that's the thing, like, because we're no longer, we haven't been for like 30, 40 years, that we're a completely service-based industry. We are completely reliant on consumer spending, right? Our economy is based on people going out and spending money. If the cash flow's got to be that quick, then the only way to keep the economy going is the businesses are going to have to raise wages, because if people got to choose between rent and all this other stuff, well, they're going to pay their rent. And guess what? Restaurants are going to take an even bigger hit because people can't afford to go out to eat. And, think about what happened with the vacation, the airlines and things like that. A lot of them about to go bankrupt, right? Because
I'll give you a better scenario. About right before the first crisis that we went, what was it, early 2000s, I believe, wasn't it? So my mother's health started going downhill really fast at the time. This is before cancer, before everything. So I had two choices: pay my mortgage or pay her medical bills. Which one do you think I picked?
Mortgage.
Nope, her medical bills. It was her life versus that. Luke, take the fucking house. Take it. I can't replace my mom. I can't replace the house anytime later on. I'll buy another house. But I had to pick my mom's health over that. Why do I have to pick over my where to live, be homeless, or have somebody live?
Well, because we are a free market capitalist society. It's a pay-to-play society.
Yep.
That's the problem. Like, I'm okay living by these rules. I just hate when people don't want to admit the truth. We are a free market economy, and we have to pay to play. This is why people are so obsessed with high levels of salary instead of purchasing power. People don't want to talk about what you actually receive with the income you get. You know what I mean? Those two different conversations.
That is the issue, because though people realize when we're doing great is when we're spending a lot of money. Like, think of how much debt this country is in, and his debt is getting higher and higher and higher. It's not going down. Think about it.
Man.
Like, I feel like I use Canada, for example, with their health insurance. Last time I checked, they have the better one, not the great, is a better one. Like I use Greece, for example. I know more about that. Greece, that you pay a little higher taxes. You pick what insurance company you want to use, just like a free market, but everybody has insurance. So you don't have to worry about medical bills ever again. When you go get a pharmacy, get your medication, you don't pay nothing because it's built into your taxes.
Yeah, Germany's the same way, but you got to understand, like, you live in America now. That's socialist commie BS, and it's got no business over here, bro. That's the unfortunate. That's how people think about it.
Yeah, but I think that is one thing they're doing right. I'll be honest with you. Doesn't mean I, agree. Whatever words you want to use, commie, you want to use social, whatever you want to freaking use. I don't care. I think that is the right way to go with it, with health insurance. I remember when I worked for a health company, I was I was cooking in the cafeteria. The CEO opened a bottle of champagne. I'm not talking about cheap champagne, the most expensive on the market. When Obama signed that note, he goes, "You just gave me the right to charge whatever I want and whenever I want."
But again, that's what people don't understand. Businesses being in control of the products that they have, the services they provide, the hours that they stay open, the businesses they want to try and buy out, those are all examples of a free market economy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, in order to do any of the stuff that people don't like about the free market economy requires regulation. Right? But regulation, that's a dirty word in this country, man.
Oh, it's a real dirty word. If you use that word, you're asking for trouble.
Well, so, oh, my bad.
No, go ahead.
One of the ideas, maybe you guys can critique this, because it's just like I've been thinking about it for a few days. One of the things I would do with the homeless crisis is this is America. Everything is based off of opportunity, quid pro quo, if you will. If you want to get dank with it. So the first thing I would do is definitely stop drug testing. I think, what people want to do with their body, as long as they show up to work on time, sober, what are they doing? They off time, that's on them. And then I will offer specifically to homeless people, like at homeless camps, okay, we'll give you a job building the very apartment complexes and housing that you'll eventually live in, right? Because right now, everybody likes to joke about Section 8, except they don't like to tell the truth about Section 8. Right now, on average, it's a 2-year waiting list. So just because you apply for Section 8 doesn't mean you immediately get a place to live. You got to wait around. A lot of people are homeless waiting around for Section 8 housing, right? So one of the ways we can do that is by, hey, look, we can cover housing expenses. We can help build a trade. All you got to do is show up to work on time and do the work, right? I would just get rid of drug testing, period, because I think it is dumb. And then I would also regulate the way we build homes and homes specifically, because if you look at how homes are built compared to how they built in Europe, we are so primitive in America. We still use sticks and stones to build our houses. And in Europe, they use concrete and brick, right? And then we wonder why people who live in Tornado Alley get their homes ripped apart all the time. And you got to constantly rebuild it. Well, damn, if you use, things that actually are strong, good material, maybe you want to have to rebuild so much. But one of the problems that we have is that we have a very inefficient way of building housing. It causes the materials to skyrocket in prices, like at the wood at Home Depot and everything like that is super high. So one thing I would do is regulate the way we build homes, and then specifically target and obviously we know not every homeless person is going to take the opportunity, right? Because we understand there's a certain percentage of people who are just going to be bums. We get it. But not everyone's gonna be a bum. There's gonna be a lot of people that try to take that opportunity, right? And so I can't be worried. And so when it comes to these solutions, there's always going to be a percentage of people who are going to do the wrong thing, right? But what makes the policy work is if the majority does the right thing.
It's
So that's
funny
what I
you
was
said
doing.
that because I've been thinking about this ever since I moved to this country. And I looked around like, why are we still using wood? It's the first thing that went in my mind. Why are we using wood roofing, not metal? Why are we using materials that it will go bad? Not if they will. They will rot away. They will get termites. They will get destroyed at one point. Why?
Also, it's highly flammable.
Yeah,
Right, the
yeah.
average home stick built in America could go up in flames in 15 minutes.
Oh
The
yeah,
average home in Europe takes about 3 to 4 hours because it's built out of concrete and brick.
yeah. I'm like, yeah, the
You know what I mean?
installation is not the greatest with concrete. I give them that. It's a little colder, but I prefer to pay a higher electrical bill versus a house that I know it might go up. Like if I drop my cigarette, I don't smoke, but if I did, for example, or a grease fire starts, I think my chances of concrete house better. I think.
Yeah, but the biggest thing is because well, I just moved in here a few months ago. I just bought this crib, and going through that whole process, bro, I really realized like people get these stick built homes simply because they want to freaking be able to remodel in the future cheaper, right? Obviously, it's a lot easier to bust down a wood wall than it is, something made out of concrete and everything. But at the end of the day, man, we one thing in America, we always choose convenience over function and form, bro. It gets annoying. And then
I
again,
agree.
it's like, yeah, we keep saying, well, it's because of cost, but guess what? It costs a lot of money to constantly rebuild that crap because it's cheaply built. So you end up spending way more on the back end than if you would have just built it high quality the first time. You know what I mean?
I totally agree 100% because we built all these houses and guess what? In a few years, they're already rotted. I remember when I bought my house, I built a brand new house. It was fine at first, great. But 5, 6 years later, I'm having a lot of problems with it. Like, I shouldn't have all these problems in a brand new house like this. It should be mint still in 5 years. And that's what my theory was. Oh, I guess I was wrong.
Yeah, but that's how it is, man. Like I was trying to price out a detached 2-car garage, right? And with a construction company, it typically take them 8 to 10 weeks because they're gonna do it the old stick figure way, right? But then there's a prefab modular construction company in Pennsylvania where they literally build it in the factory and then they block it up like Legos, and it's such a faster time. But the problem is, it's like it's going to cost so much money because they got to come out of state to do it, right? And the state of Ohio still on that backwards, or like a lot of the country still on that old stick figure route. And I'm like, man, it's wintertime. Y'all never gonna get that crap done.
Yeah, because I remember when I lived in my house at the time, the snow was ridiculous out in PA, and now the snow is not as bad. But I remember trying to break ground during that time. Forget it. It
Yeah.
was we were forecast to be done building in 18 months. It became to be close to 20 months because contractors didn't want to go out to work in the snow.
No. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like if to bring it back to the homeless thing, if we change those things, again, it's not going to solve the entire problem, but it'll help. And it'll also boost the economy because we got people working, paying taxes.
I
So
can see
the
your
video
point of that.
that I had constructed. So we talked about how what would happen on Sunday, which is that Sunday, the Christians would all go to church, and the churches would be preaching about what the Bible has to say about homelessness and what the Bible has to say about people being idle and being slothful. And then so, being that they listened to that on Sunday, because I'm talking about how to fix homelessness in the course of a week, so I'm going day by day. And so Monday, the Christians who heard that message on Sunday, they would, be motivated and have a fire lit under them that would encourage them to want to, shut down their shelters and shut down their feeding programs. So that way they would be motivating the people, the homeless people, transferring that motivational energy down to them by saying, because now they realize that they're not really doing these people any favors by constantly giving them handouts, because what they really need is that they need to realize is that the best thing that they can do is to go out and make their own living, and get their own stuff. And so that is what would transpire on Monday. And so so that would lead into Tuesday. And so by Tuesday, being that the shelters and the church facilities and the parachurch ministries, being that they would have stopped doing their quote unquote community outreach, by Tuesday, um, these same people in their own personal lives would stop handing these people money and stop handing these people food and doing things like that. Like when they see them on the corners, when they see them on the street and things like that, um, they would stop doing that in their own personal lives and not just in the group setting. And then so by Wednesday, um, like you were saying to Ruse, there is no solution that will, you know, cure every single homeless person, because people are homeless for different reasons. But by Wednesday, all of the homeless people who, are still in their right mind and want to be not homeless anymore, they will have gotten the picture, and they will understand that, okay, the paradigm has shifted, and I'm not going to be able to just waltz into some shelter and get a shower and a sandwich and a couple bucks, and so I need to go out and um, do my own thing. And so, being that, they would all, start to go into their local, jobs and facilities, little restaurants, fast food places, retail stores. They would all start to pour into there, once they realize that the handouts are all now dried up. And so, and by now they're killing two birds with one stone, because now they're going to have some money. And two, they're now helping cure the worker shortage, like you were just saying earlier as well. And so now there are some things that I've heard people say, because I've mentioned, different aspects of this before to different people. And I've had, people say like, oh, well, homeless people, they can't get jobs because they don't have their social security number, or they can't get jobs because they don't have an address. And so when it comes to the aspect of the social security number, um, now I've had a variety of jobs. I've worked, like I was saying earlier, I've worked in a nail salon, I've worked at Domino's Pizza, I worked at Chipotle, and I think those were like my only like official, like those are my only two W-2 type jobs. Um, but most of the jobs I've worked at, I didn't need my social security number. It was nothing that ever came up. And so, but even if you do, then there are ways around that, because there are illegal aliens who get jobs, and so there when there's a will, there's a way. And so another thing about not having an address, if you need a job, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be your home address or a home address. It can be a different type of place. It could be a church, it could be a shelter, it could be um, I'm pretty sure it could also be a PO box. It could be a gym. It could be lots of different places that you could have your mail sent to. And so, and then transportation is another thing that people say. Oh, how are they going to get to and from work? Depending on where it is. If you're homeless, then you don't have a home to start at, so you just set your tent up near to where the place where you're going to work is. And so, of course, this is all hypothetical anyway. But that would be the kind of trickle down effect that would start to happen. But so now we're up to Thursday. But what do you guys think about that so far?
Grumman, you want to go?
All right, go first.
Just to counter some of your ideas. Let's take away the fact whether I think that would work or not. One of the things I instantly heard a problem with is that no matter if it works or not, you've guaranteed a decline in the church, because you just had organizations who claim that everyone's godchildren, just straight up, you want them to abandon their people in the most vulnerable time. So even if those homeless people make it, the one thing they're not going to do is go back to those churches. And then on top of that, how can the homeless people use church as an address when you want them to cut those said homeless people off? That's not possible. They wouldn't allow that, right? Like there's a lot of things that's legally wise. Like for example, with the social security number, I will take your word for it. I just know every job I've worked absolutely needed your SN or what's called the I-10 number. A lot of illegal immigrants actually have an I-10 number. It's the same digits as the social security number. Because fun fact, illegal immigrants uh, right now they pay about $75 billion into our social security system every single year. So just because you don't have an SS, you can still get an I-10. What you harped on, though, is the bigger problem we have in America, and that's the fact that we do not make it easy in this country to get a simple official state ID, right? I think that for the basic ID, like a state ID, I don't understand why every citizen should at least have their first one issued for free. Like I don't understand why licensing and things like that really need to be paid for. Because I believe having ID is important, but you need an ID to apply for a job and to have all of these different things and to get housing and to do all of these different aspects of civilian society, if you will. That one thing we can do is at least make sure that everybody who doesn't have an SS or doesn't have their card or their birth certificate, we can really focus in. That's paperwork. We can fix that, and we should fix that.
Well, you say that it's difficult to get an ID. What do you mean by that?
No, like people, it's hard to get an ID if you don't have your SS or you don't have your birth certificate, right? Because a lot of people are missing those documents. We just talked about that. Like, you just say like people don't have their SS so they can't get a job or things like that. Like
Oh,
we can help with that sort of paperwork. The thing is that there's just certain ways where, man, there's not a lot of evidence for trickle down in America actually working.
well, okay, well, because when you first said it, I didn't know what you meant. So you're saying that it's difficult to get it if you don't have a birth certificate, if you don't have your social security number, because if you do have those things, then it's very simple to get a
It's easy.
number.
Yeah. But like if we're good, but for homeless people, we're assuming they have no money, right? But for a simple state ID, not a driver's license, not anything, but just your normal state ID card, I think that should just be issued to every U.S. citizen. You know what I mean? So if you're homeless, that's not something you really got to worry about. At least you know you could go get an ID and you're good.
Well, to have that, that's expensive. Where's that money going to come from?
Come out of the defense budget.
Hmm, I suppose it's possible, but like brother Daniel was saying in the chat earlier, I think that it would be it would behoove us to want to get away from government assistance and get away from government funding. And so if they just were to back off of us more, then we as citizens would
How?
have more.
Can you enlighten me real quick, just so I understand your perspective? What do you even mean by limiting or making government smaller or anything like that?
I mean, okay, well, that's a good question. So, like right now, we have, um, like the IRS, and the IRS is a big, thing, and so we have no reason for the IRS, and so therefore that whole, you know, entity should be abolished. Um, and so different groups like that, like the CIA, they should be abolished, and um, we have the government, they take our money and then they give it back to us later on, and it's like if we just didn't have income tax, then that would be a different thing. That's a whole nother area that, we could get rid of, or, property taxes or sales taxes and things like that. Like, if we just had maybe just like a one universal tax that everybody paid the same percentage, then we wouldn't need all these different little bureaucracies to tax and, nickel and dime us every step of the way. And then people would have more of their own income that they're making, and therefore they could be free to spend their money on what they want to, and they could donate to a fund to help the homeless, or they could donate to, things that they deem valuable. But if the government were smaller and, didn't take our money at first, or, tax us as much as they do, then, people would just have more money. So the government doesn't need to give us our money back, by, assistance and funding. They just need to leave us alone so we can keep the money that we already make.
So, who do you plan on who's in charge of maintaining the infrastructure, or the public schools, or any of that?
Well, public school is another thing that, should be abolished. But like infrastructure, I think that that's something that could be funded with the general the general, tax, like the universal tax that everyone just paid, like 10% or 3% or something like that. There'd be way more than enough money to do that.
Oh, okay, so in general, I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum of that. Again, while I do like our capitalism, I do think we need a leash on it, because unfortunately, I'm really concerned with how we spend our tax revenue. Um, we always talk about limited government, but it always seems to be limited government when it comes to business. When it comes to things about individual Americans and freedoms, seems to be a-okay with expanding the government. And so for, you say you want to abolish certain aspects, or like the IRS and things like that. And the one thing I heard that would be a layup as far as limited government is to get rid of corporate subsidies, because we literally have a welfare state of corporations who live off of taxpayer subsidies in this country, right? Like, they claim they're big business and everything. So why do they need their money, our money? Like, I love sports. Why do billionaires need our money to build a stadium?
Right. Exactly. That's a good point. So what were you going to say, grooming? You can jump in.
Yeah, I want to jump to the sports thing he said, man, because that hit a very nerve of me, because I've been fighting this argument for years. We pay these players, what, millions to play a sport, right?
Yeah.
So my argument with that is, why are we paying these guys to play a sport millions, and we cannot pay millions to our soldiers who are losing their lives?
Well, I got to answer that. As a former soldier, I should not be paid as an athlete. That right there, that's complete, dude. They get paid what their market value says they're worth. That's like, I support them athletes and everything getting millions, bro. And I'm a combat vet. Don't
My best friend,
get paid more.
my best friend has been shot 30 times in Iraq. So trust me, I understand where you're coming from with that. This is my personal opinion. Is I think they should not be getting paid as much. Not even, okay, maybe a couple thousands. Okay, yeah, what? That's fine. But I think the salary for a soldier, definitely a combat soldier, should be raised a lot more than it is now. I'm not sure what the rate is at this moment, but it's not as good as we think it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm never gonna push back on raising soldiers' rate. I always push back on the whole athlete versus soldier thing, because sometimes that's a wedge for no reason. Like, because bro, like when I was active duty in Monday morning, Tuesday morning formation, guess who's arguing about these athletes and how much they worth? Soldiers, right? Before PT, we doing that all day, man. So it's like, yeah.
But you see where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I do. But again, like, that's Congress. Congress could raise the pay for soldiers.
Why would
You
they?
get what I
Because
mean?
they make it's better for them to have a buyback coming across, from my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's those for me. That's two different things. Like because that we are considered federal employees, the federal government should be they're the ones responsible for whatever it is we get paid, right? As far as the sports thing goes, the athletes they get paid market value. And let's be clear, like when we talk about the wealthy, because again, I like capitalism. Think about how much, Mr. Genie, you know this. Think about how much taxes they're paying. These athletes are paying, getting paid millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're contributing. They're part of that percentage that actually pays the most in income tax, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not like they're not doing anything or they're not contributing. So you know,
I just like I said, it just that hits me a little personal because I have a lot of friends in the service.
no, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and that to me is always something I always felt very passionate about. I think we should lower that, and like even us, you're right. We are hours and hours, not football season. How many times do you talk about football during the day?
God, dude, I don't even want to try to answer that. A lot.
Yeah. So as long we bring it up, definitely on the radio or on a social media or something, there's the number. Ching, 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 ching. So if we flip that role, they start talking about the military more, it should be the same concept, but it's not.
Well, yeah, because you got to remember, government is not an entity designed to make a profit. It is designed to allocate resources. Where private businesses like the NFL, they're designed to make a profit. So they're different roles. That's why they operate differently. You know what I mean? And so it's like the way they operate is okay. The issue isn't the athletes or even the league for that matter. As far as the taxes go, it's the billionaires when they want their individual stadium built, right? They'll go like for example, they'll go to Cleveland, they'll go to the mayor, and they'll try to write a proposal, a policy that X amount of taxpayer money is going to help go to the infrastructure of this stadium. But like our owner, well, he's under investigation for the FBI for fraud, but he owns, you know, Pilot J, the gas stations or those trucker stops and everything like that. The dude's a freaking multi-billionaire. Like, bro, you really need the city government of Cleveland to help you with this, right? But we allow them to do that. That's the thing. We allow them to get that off because to not allow them to do that grooming is socialism.
And that is the problem. We allow them. We should never allow them.
Well, that's the thing, man. You got a lot of people, you know, voting against their own demise because I get it. People don't want to lose their jobs. They don't even want to have the fear of losing their jobs. But how many times have these corporations constantly showed us that when given the opportunity, they will screw us over. If we give them an inch, they will take a mile. I mean, think about it, grooming. They told the American people, yeah, we're going to close these factories down. The reason we're going to China is because we're actually going to pass the savings on to you, the consumer. How much some pickup trucks cost again?
Too much.
What's the inflation going on again? You get what I mean? Oh, they didn't pass it. You know what they passed the savings on to? Stock buybacks for the shareholders. But those are examples of a free market capitalist society because businesses are allowed to do that. It's legal. So I can't get mad at them for doing what's legal. I got to get mad at the government or the politicians who constantly deregulate and tax them. But in order for me to get mad at the politicians grooming, I got to look at the people who constantly vote that in. They constantly vote for politicians who say they're going to deregulate and cut taxes of corporations. Well,
So
this
an
is what that society looks like.
F-150,
And we got no choice but to pay.
so F-150 2023 is about 70K right now, and that's bare minimum. Nothing in it.
70K.
Nothing in it. There's a radio and a heater. That's it. I'm not talking remote starter. I'm not talking about electric seats, maybe power windows, and that's it. Really, a radio. That's it. 70K for a truck. That is nothing in it. That is disgusting. Imagine if that was fully loaded.
Probably one.
Oh yeah. It go them Raptors now, the 4 Raptors, you want one loaded, 6 figures. Easy. The new Cadillac Escalade you see riding around, 6 figures, easy.
And they got very popular lately too.
Yep. But hey, guess what? You got to pay to play in America. So these corporations are, and that's the thing. I can't hate because everything they doing in this country is legal. We legislatively allowed them to do this, and so it's like I can't even be mad because they created a society where all we can do is be mad about it. What are we gonna do? Not pay? You know what I mean?
So a bare minimum Raptor starts at $76,000, monthly payment estimated at $994.
Oh my gosh.
Not 900 and that's not even, remember guys, it's not included whatever your insurance rate's going to be a month.
Yeah, of course. This is a estimate. It says some models estimated at so and so numbers.
Oh wait. What's the estimate? What's the APR on that? On the estimate?
Doesn't tell me actually. Oh, yeah, it doesn't tell me for some reason.
So the APR, just speculating here, guys. The APR should be around average if you got good credit between 3 to 5%, maybe 6 because of interest rates. Right now, something like the average auto loan, people are taking out 11, 12, 15% APR. And then they taking out these loans for like 6, 7 years. And you just underwater negative equity on your car note, on your car for so long. And these cars start breaking down year 3, year 4, and you just stuck with a depreciating asset. But guess what? We live in America where public transportation, again, that's socialism. You got to drive everywhere. We don't like places with walking distance. That's commie shit. You know what I mean? And so you got to.
My car right now, I'm at 8.5%. But again, I got screwed in my deal because I got in an accident. I needed a vehicle. I had no choice. I got in what I could.
No, but dude, I get it, man. Like at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do to make it. But man, there's a lot of crap going on that can be changed for the better. Like,
oh yeah,
like capitalism is great, but it can be improved upon. You know what I mean?
So back to the really fast because I saw it right here. For a fully loaded Raptor, it comes out to monthly. What was it? 1,1300, and final price is at 85K.
Man.
That's $300 more than what I was paying for my condo on my mortgage. That's insane.
It's absurd.
That's insane.
Well, listen, fellas, it's like this. We have the money to fix the homelessness situation in America. The money is not a problem. Like, not even a little bit. Like, at all. It's just, do we want to? And that's the only element that's missing is the desire to fix it. There is no desire to fix it because the system wouldn't work as efficiently and as well as it does if we did fix it. America would have no problems if we wanted to fix them. People are like, oh, how expensive is that? It's not expensive at all. Like, you really don't know how little money it takes to fix all of the homeless problems in America. Like, it's cheap. It's super cheap compared to how much money we bring in and how much money we spend on other things. Like, if you took the defense budget and put it towards curing diseases and fixing homeless situation, there would be no homeless situation and there would be no diseases. There would be no cancer, no AIDS, nothing. If you just took the defense budget, and put it towards that, it's over. In 3 years, I get, and the 3 years, that's for the diseases and shit. That ain't for the homeless. The homeless is done in a couple of months. I get 8 months at the most with a nationwide effort. 8 months. There's no homeless people. There'll be people unemployed, yeah, but they'd have a roof over their head. They'd have food to eat. But then people are going to bring in the argument the question of
real estate and assets to fix this problem. It's about whether or not we feel like it.
That's all it is, Tarus. That's all it is. Do you feel like doing it or not? Yeah. Well, we can't. Oh, okay, cool. At least I have that answer. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but what they bring into the argument is that, well, if you give everyone everything, then there'll be no incentive for them to go to work and stuff like that. So that's why we're not going to do it.
Why about make it a way, like if you want the housing, you have to at least provide a job, have something in those lines.
Well, see, grooming. The thing is, now what you're doing is negotiating terms, and those are terms that I myself find agreeable. Okay, but get a politician to hear that.
Good luck.
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying?
So when I went a few years back to visit DC, I actually spoke to a politician, and then we got in a heated argument.
Did you notice how disconnected that politician was from the rest of the regular people?
Oh yeah,
the disconnect between you and him. That was the most jarring thing to me when I first talked to a politician. Like the first 3 politicians I ever talked to, it was jarring. But after the third one, I was like, okay, this is just how they are. And everyone I've met since then and talked to, it's the same thing. Like they have no concept of how normal people live. They have no clue what it's like to be a normal person in this country. They don't know. They literally don't know.
I agree.
So there's no incentive for them to care because they can't relate to us. The disconnect in how they view things is so different from us. It's like
because they don't have the same words that we
do.
Like we have to worry about our bills. We have to worry about food on our table. They're set.
Like, and it's mind blowing.
Oh God!
It's like these people are from another planet. I'm like, do you live in America? Like what country you live in? I'm looking at these people. I'm like, what country y'all live in? That's not how it works. Not at all. But that's the way they see it. You know, they see things in the way that affects them. That's it. They don't really represent the people. So it makes I had this ideology. I was like, okay, why do I bother voting then? What? Because it serves no purpose. It really doesn't. So the reason why I do vote is because the way I look at it is too much blood has been spilled for my right to do so, for me to not do it. So that's why I vote. Too many people are going through too much for me to have the right to do so. So I do it. It's out of respect for the people who
argument that voting on this federal level or for the politicians at the federal level, maybe it's a dog and pony show for sure. But let's be very clear: voting at the state level,
your local government,
high importance.
Yeah, your local government, your city councilmen, your mayors, things like that. Even your governors. Yeah. That is definitely your judges.
Because people got to remember, at the federal level, we don't do line by line issue voting, right? That's not how federal government works. Those voter initiative and line by line voters that does at the state level, at your local level, right? When you're voting for everything from, hey, should we legislate marijuana to who's your, local county tax commissioner, all those different things that people don't pay attention to. We got to remember, those people actually control the budgeting in the state, county, city, right? And so the federal government, it's important to vote, but it's not that important. And what I mean by that, Mandrell, is like, I can vote for president or my U.S. senator, or hell, even the House of Representatives, even though they control the purse. At the end of the day, at best, you're going to see those policies actually on the ground implemented, like actually feel that maybe year 3 or 4. Anything that's going on in your state, though, you can feel that as soon as tomorrow.
You can.
Right? You could feel that a week later. Right? Your school districts, when you're voting to approve or disapprove a tax levy for the fire department, for the police department, for your school district, they can feel that instantly. You know what I mean, in your community. But the federal policy, man, that takes so long.
Yeah, and that's what people tend to focus on. They don't focus on their local politics. It is your local government that affects your life by far and away the most. But people pay little to no attention to it. So,
but those are the things. Those state government, that y'all guys realize that's what's keeping the homeless crisis from being solved. I mean, y'all know I'm liberal, but I can't defend Gavin Newsom in California. Bro, you are the 6th largest economy in the world. Not the country, not this side of the hemisphere, the entire world. You are by yourself a state, the 6th largest in the world. And yet every time you see them do these policies with the homeless, it's not actually fixing the homeless problem. It's policies that just get the homeless people out the way so that the wealthy don't have to see it on their day-to-day activities.
They're an eyesore.
I hate that.
They're an eyesore, Tarus. That's what it is. They're undesirables. And you got some politicians out there that would actually liquidate these people. Like, seriously, I'm not kidding. They would euthanize people if they were allowed to. Bro, if they were allowed to, they would.
We said it last night. The show House of Cards is more realistic than you think it is.
Did they talk about that?
About what? The House of Cards?
Yeah, on House of Cards, did they talk about ending homeless people?
I gotta head out. I'll see y'all later.
There, dude. I don't remember. It's been a while since I watched the show. But where I'm going with it, it was so realistically how politicians act these days. It was like, seriously. And then when I met one person, I'm like, the hell? It's just like the show almost. He was so cold hard, like, I don't care. It's not my life. But you're playing games with my life instead. And yours, and yours, and yours. But they don't care because they have their mansions, the cushy, they might live in DC, Maryland, or whatever they live. They're fine. They're good. They have their private security. They're set for life. They don't care.
Well, hey, Mr. Jenny, how you doing? Jenny.
Hey, RP.
Hey, Terus, how you doing, man? Long time no see, brother.
How you doing, bro?
Hey, listen, real quick. I wasn't going to stay long. It's funny about the homeless thing. Good show. The Chinese diplomats, I believe, came to San Francisco, something like that. Yeah. Recently, they cleared up everything in a matter of a couple of weeks. Homeless tents. They found a solution because they wanted to look good for the diplomats. And now all of the police presence, all the things that they paid money for to get the place clean, it's gone. So now it's a wait and see how things are going to transform back to the way it was. But what that shows you is when there's resolve to do something, the government moves. And it's already lost in the source. I mean, it should be a major news story that they were able to clean up a tent city, clean up an area, did all this stuff just to show and prove for some guy's quote unquote our enemy, right? And then it's going to go back to normal. So I just think that I agree with Mandrell. They can fix all of this stuff. The thing that they can't fix easy is I think that if a person is homeless, it's a matter of a couple of weeks before they start to have some kind of mental illness, right? And when I say mental illness, they're not crazy, but I can't imagine. Can you imagine not having a place over your head for a couple of weeks, sleeping on the street? You might not go crazy, but you're damn sure on your way to some kind of psychosis.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you have children, especially you know what I'm saying? So somehow, whatever, I think we don't look at how people got homeless, right? I think that in every society, 5 to 10% of the population we're going to have to take care of. I don't care what society it is. Maybe 10% is high. There's always going to be people who game the system or people that you despise. That always, always, no matter what you do, you're not going to get that down to zero. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's people who are homeless for real legitimate, horrible reasons. And some of that could be prevented, and I don't think we examine that kind of stuff. Just like losing an address can make you homeless. Anything. I mean, losing a job and losing an address and the things you cannot do without a bona fide address, because a lot of places won't accept P.O. box. So that's I just think that, it's a fine line, and it's one of these issues that we should be able to fix. Like, I'm an engineer. I'm gonna shut up on this one. There's a lot of stuff is a process, and if there's a process to fix things, that means it could be managed. It could be measured. If you could find out where the bottlenecks are, you can remove the bureaucracy in certain areas. It's just like the immigration problem. There's a process for you. If you're an immigrant, there's a process for you to be a citizen. So that means if there's a process, then there's steps. And you can see where the steps have holes in them. You can look at value system or value stream system to see, okay, here's the bottleneck. How do we fix that bottleneck? Is the pipeline big enough for the amount of people we're trying to push through? You can measure all of that shit. I don't know why we can't fix these basic things that have discrete steps. And it bothers me because we're being gamed. We put these guys in Congress and in the Senate to do one thing, and that's run the government. So why are we worrying about them shutting down the government every year with the damn debt ceiling? That's the last thing we should hear, a nuclear option. So, so this is a good topic, and it's a seesaw. Yeah, there's always going to be people who are lazy and homeless because they want to game the system. But every single society, we're going to always have to take care of a certain amount of poor. It's just that simple. Anyway, I just wanted to say good show. And hey, look, man. Hey, Tim Roos, we need to get you back so we can beat you and Easy up, man, sooner or later. I want to know this show. Hey, listen, I'm going to pull out. Hey, I'll see you later. Good show. I'll listen in.
Hey, Merry Christmas, man.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to all of you guys, too.
Hey, I'll talk to you later, buddy. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Grant, I want to get your 2 cents on this, but before I let you jump in, I want to finish my week out of my week how to fix the homelessness crisis. And so we left off on Thursday. And so I have that when it comes to Thursday, being that the homeless people who are the ones who are just lazy and unmotivated, they will have gotten jobs by then. And then so by Thursday, the people who are the higher skilled laborers and people who have already had jobs, they will go to their normal morning routines of stopping to get coffee and stopping to get breakfast, and those things are going to take a lot shorter time because there's not going to be a bottleneck because there's not going to be as few workers, and so their morning is going to go smoother and they're going to have a better day at work, and then so productivity is going to be higher at everybody's job. And so by Friday, the news will be reporting on this because the news is going to catch wind of this and hear about how America's economy is running like a well-oiled machine. All of a sudden, and they're going to be like, where did this happen? What caused this? And it will have all stemmed back from the hard preaching that took place that Sunday. And so once the news starts reporting on it, then the federal government is going to catch wind of it, and then they're going to try to take credit for it. And so that's what's going to happen on Friday. And then by Saturday, the very end of the week, so we started off by saying that on Monday that the churches and the parachurch ministries and the Christian charities, that they would all, shut their doors to the homeless people and, stop giving them food to motivate them to get up and do it themselves. And so by Saturday, at the end of the week, the secular charities, that they will have gotten the notice, and that they'll start initiating this as well. And so now we have pretty much full coverage of, the outreach ministries and the outreach centers, providing actual legitimate outreach to the homeless communities. And so then we're going to have a by and so altogether, it's just going to be that by the end of the week, that all the people who, are not like single parents or disabled, or people who physically cannot work, or, people have legitimate reasons, all the people outside of that who are just, the lazy vagrants that I was speaking of, they will all have gotten their act together, and they'll all, be at work. And so the homelessness crisis, because I'm saying that the homelessness crisis will be solved, because you're never going to be to the point where you're never going to have any homeless people or any unemployed people, because Jesus said in John chapter 12 verse 8 that for the poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always. And so Jesus is saying that, there's always going to be poor people. And so, therefore that's true. And so we're never going to get to the point where we, unemployment or homelessness is at 0%. But that would be the strategy to successfully mitigate it, get it down to a very reasonable level. And, you don't have to throw $13 billion at it, and you don't really have to spend any money. If anything, you take away money that has been spent to it. And that would be the way that you could effect some real change. And so that's what I had set up. But Grant, have you been listening in, or what do you have to say?
Yeah, I've listened to the vast majority of the conversations. I have a pretty good grasp of sort of some of the themes you're sort of working with. I think it's been a really informative conversation. I think Taros has laid out some very good counter arguments, as well as grooming. I would just say, I'm as a native of California, I live here now. I do think there is a misunderstanding of what the sort of complexities of homelessness is in California. It's a lot more nuanced than just spending money. And I think our government is really looking at that as a problem, correct? And so I won't get into the minutia of it, but I do think it becomes a talking point for politicians to leverage this group of people, which is about 500,000 people. So give or take, you maybe get up to 600,000, less than 1% of the population. So again, when you can have these conversations, and so you can create this boogeyman, which are the homeless people, and so you create a narrative around it, I think it becomes problematic. These are, by all measures, if you're a Christian, these are souls. These are people that you want to help. And so when you take the approach that all people are bad, you're in essence negating their humanity, and you're negating the part in which, if you believe in the notion of some sort of forgiveness, then you're not allowing for them to sort of come to that space. Again, that's if you are landing there as a position point. I do think when we talk about homelessness and where it sort of derives, by and large, it's going to be in large cities. It's going to be in areas where you have sort of these large discrepancies. And so those complexities have been around since the beginning of humankind. And so you can read old articles, during the British Empire. You can look at any number of empires, and oftentimes in the middle of Paris, in the middle of the height of their colonies, their empires, again they're writing stories about the homelessness. And so this has landed with humans for a very long time. And so I think we oversimplify how to solve problems, and I think it does feel good. And so I think when you have someone that comes along and provides something as simplistic as, we'll just take their money away. But we already know by the sheer fact that they're homeless, they already actually are getting no money. So taking away the thing that they don't have by virtue of them being without seems to nullify the notion that somehow they're walking around with copious amounts of cash just to sleep on the streets and be mugged and raped or graped and harmed on a daily basis. These experiences for the people who are homeless are vastly different than ours. And so I think the irony was early in the conversation, we talked about politicians not understanding the plight of Americans, or, typical Americans like you, all of us here. But maybe we don't understand the plight of someone who's homeless. Maybe we lack the understanding of what they're going through. I know Grooming obviously told his story, and I appreciate that. But maybe we lack the understanding of truly what has caused that for those individuals. And so I think we need to take a step back. If we can sort of frame around our mind that there is a group of people, politicians, who lack the credible understanding of our situation, is it possible or plausible that maybe we don't quite understand their situations and how they landed there? And so I think if you're claiming the mantle of a Christian or Jesus or some religion, compassion should be at the forefront of what I think are very complex issues. And how do we infuse some level of compassion and understanding? That doesn't necessarily mean we let people run amok, but I think I think part of having these discussions, and again, this is a great discussion, is when do you put forward that part of you, all of us, correct, that says compassion is a way to approach these problems. And I think extracting something from people as a punishment, correct? It sounds great, but oftentimes we know that those things haven't quite yielded all of the sort of results we have expected. So I would just point out that I think you're putting forward what I think are things that you believe are true, but like with everything, there's a far more nuance that goes into it and far more complexity. And sure, your ideas can be put forward as part of a whole host of ideas. And I'm sure other people in the chat, I'm sure Grooming and Taurus have put forward some ideas. All these ideas are colliding, correct, at our federal and state level, and even some of our more local levels. And that's democracy. That's part of being a part of a republic. We have this level of sort of tug of war with ideas. And so in order to sort of figure out the best way, the tug of war has to happen. Because if I could assume that I know everything, I would negate everything you've said this whole time, Miss Guinea. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And so that wouldn't be fair, correct? To negate just because I believe in what I believe, and to say what your thoughts are invalid would be negating that you have at least a perspective that is worth hearing. And so I think when we have these conversations, I think we need to keep that at the forefront as well. And so those are my sort of thoughts on homelessness.
Well, thank you, Grant. And it's Ginny, like ginger.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys have anything else that you would like to add?
$100, you can pronounce my real name.
I can try.
Are you Spanish? You sound like you're Spanish.
Way off. I'm Greek.
Oh, Greek. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna put my real name in the chat right now. See if anybody can pronounce it. There you go.
Oh man. Is it okay?
You're
is
muted,
it
bro.
Pangiotis.
Close. Panayotis.
Pangiotis.
Okay.
Oh. Does that mean
Very cool.
something? Like it's a Spanish
Yes,
name?
actually. Backstory about about me, my birth and everything. My mom had like 8 miscarriages before me. So she prayed to Holy Mary, God's mother, pretty much. If we can have the child named after you. So Panagia comes from Panagia comes from Panagia. Panagia means Holy Mary. In the Greek Orthodox Church, it's a big saint for us. It's God, Christ, Panagia. Those are the 3 top ones that we have, besides the Holy Spirit and the other stuff.
Interesting. Stacy B79 says, ever since the pandemic happened, things have gotten worse. Inflation. Yeah, that's a fact. A lot of people have been having a really hard time bouncing back from that. Tarus was mentioning that earlier. Tarus, do you have any final thoughts on anything?
Yeah, let's just one of the things I hate when we have multiple high emotional things going on, such as a couple of different war campaigns, a high political divide, a lot of economic inflation crisis, global. The unfortunate response of society is to pick the most vulnerable people and blame everything on them. We have this uncanny ability, especially as Americans, the moment any sort of adversity happens, one, it's got to be someone's fault. Two, it's got to be the most powerless person main responsibility for why it didn't work. The demographic that has no say so over everything, it's their fault. And then we also got to remember that a lot of the things we see as Americans, we do not realize that we absolutely live in a bubble, because as hard as it is, guys, I want somebody to name a country that is currently not going through a post-pandemic inflation crisis. Point to me the country that isn't dealing with that problem.
Right.
Mars.
Right.
Mars does not have inflation.
So on the planet Earth, no one in the chat and the panel anywhere can point to a country that isn't going through economic inflation crisis, a spending crisis, everything post-COVID. Because last time I checked, right, COVID didn't just affect America. It was a global pandemic. And so we need to understand that our first world privilege, that, hey man, we sitting in the McDonald's line too long. Where's my burger? No, this Starbucks line is too long. This rent's too high. We got to remember that right now, COVID is just one of 5 different pandemics that have ran through Western and Central Africa. They got pandemics that go through with a way higher body count than COVID. And we don't lose any sleep over it. The crap going on with Israel and Palestine, I've chalked that up to Middle East, up to Middle Eastern BS. How many decades have they been up doing the same thing? Right? Go ask them if they can whine about gas prices while they in a blockade. Go ask Ukraine right now, who's right now defending their country against a dude who's comparing himself to imperialistic Russia. We talking czars, all these kind of crazy people from world history. Go ask them if they can worry about their gas prices right now. China right now, that one China policy, Ms. Jeannie, they got a population crisis. Do you understand that in a country of 1 billion plus people, Ms. Jeannie, they actually don't have the population necessary to replace themselves? Yeah. If they don't import migrants, their population will die. Yeah. Population of 1 billion people. Here in America, we ain't got hoodlums robbing Walmart, right? What are they robbing? Gucci stores, right? They robbing because here in America, we got a lot of first world entitlement problems when the rest of the world is dealing with third world, real world shit. And so sometimes I think we get too shallow and judgy, and that's my final thoughts.
Okay. Well, you made some really good points. I can't disagree with that. When it comes to the grand scheme of things, Americans are just not dealing with the same level of problems as the rest of the world, and that's a fact of the matter.
I would add to the point. I think American has a wonderful individualism that I think it shows up in a lot of different things. But I will point out a feature of being an American, which I think hopefully lands with everyone, to sort of explain sort of maybe some of the things, some of our problems are just sort of self-inflicted. They're just mainly in our brain. 99% of all UFO sightings are in America, and the other 1% are still in America. And so it shows us a level of solipsism of Americans that we're the center of the world. And so you begin to think about the fact that a country that can produce that many sightings, that sentient beings that can make it across billions of light years to come to Earth and just pick America as a place to land. Number one, I've been to Japan. I would go to Japan first, a lot cleaner, the nicer, and they have public rail. And you can get up and down the island. Like, they would know not to come to America. They would sense it immediately. They would go, these people are crazy, correct? It would be so simple to figure out if they can make it across. And yet we have this level of psychopathy, correct, within our own group. And again, it leads to a lot of things. We're probably one of the more creative people because we are always pushing the boundaries of thought, which is great. And they can land us in places that are great inventions, or they can lead you to think every day there's a Martian coming down to steal your goats. But those things, ultimately, that solipsism does cause us to sort of believe that everything is happening to us, the pandemic, et cetera, even inflation. That actually isn't true. And so when we actually give in to cynicism, the cynicism of believing that your government's all bad, that you don't need government, I will point out to everyone, there are countries that have zero government, and they're failed states. And no one is scrambling to get to failed states. And I think, and actually, I'm assuming, Mr. Grooming knows, the Greeks have gone through a financial crisis. A large portion of it is the fact that they've not been able to collect taxes. And yet it's a great country, correct? It's not full of, correct? It's full of what we imagine to be Western societies. The Greeks, for the most part, invented what most of us believe is sort of the framework of Western civilization. So they're not working off of a template that isn't known. And yet they have troubles collecting taxes and have a trouble sort of fulfilling the obligations of a government. And
let me cut you off 1 second really fast. About Greece. Greece never recovered after the transitioning to the euro. Ever since then, the market is going down, skyrocket dramatically. We have never, even to this day, you see old timers doing conversion on their phones on a calculator from drachmas to euro. I'm like, but the drachma has no value. The paper is not valued anymore, and we're still stuck in that society, and they're never gonna get out of it, unfortunately. Yeah, I said it years ago, and I said it till the day he died. If you bring the king back and help him run the government like they're supposed to, just to run, not to conquer anything like that. The Greek king had no power. He was overseeing. That's all his power was. Things was a lot better back then. The market was skyrocketing at a time when he was in power. But once they removed the monarchy, everything went to shits.
Yeah, I mean, I think you point out, like, there are complexities in life. There are complexities that we aren't experiencing. I do think part of what we can do better as citizens is not give in to the kind of fear and fear-mongering that I think a lot of times we do. And so when I point out the things about inflation is truly structural. And I think what people don't understand is, if you think about it, the Chinese shutting down for as long as they did caused a significant amount of it. But it also changed something for Americans. Right now, our biggest trade partner is now Mexico. And Mexico will continue to be our biggest trade partner while China craters. But that is a game changer for Americans. And so while we see us shifting out of the sort of global trade partnership we have with China, and they'll still be there, correct? It actually was a good thing. Potentially, you could look at COVID as a change in the world order. I mean, if the Chinese decided to set COVID aflame on the rest of the world, the Chinese government is the biggest loser in this conspiracy, correct? They've lost the one thing that they had to control the rest of the world, which was trade. And because of COVID, they've lost it. And so I'm pointing out that sometimes within the darkness, there is a glimmer of light. And so you have to be able to understand that in the midst of some of these problems, that we can actually see the solutions, and they're actually happening in front of our eyes, even when we don't notice them or even see them. Because a decade from now, we will be all looking back and going, man, That's awesome. I can go to Mexico and I can actually start my own business there because there's a textile businesses there, and I no longer have to traverse the Pacific Ocean to do that. And so I think we have to sort of get out of this notion of the sky is falling, because ultimately, even if the sky is falling, you still need to prop it up at some point, because if it crashes in on you, we're all still dead. So I think it's just important to keep that framing.
Absolutely.
All right, y'all. Well, I think that this has been a very productive conversation. I think that this has been very informative and entertaining, and I think that you all brought something very valuable to the conversation. So I really appreciate you guys all coming up here.
Hey, thanks for having us. You have a good evening.
It was my pleasure.
Yes, thank you. You too. So as I wrap up, that was. I told you guys were in for a treat, and so who I would be remiss to deceive you guys into that regard. So yes, told you that I had a treat for you, and there it was. I hope you appreciated it. I hope that you saw the value in it that there was. Um, and so moving forward, I kind of have an announcement to make that when it comes to candid conversations with a housewife, we're going to be changing up the scheduling moving forward for the foreseeable future, because it would be very disingenuous of me to come up here every week and talk to you guys from the perspective of a housewife. And I believe that as a housewife, one of my most important duties is to submit to my husband. And so my husband and I have been talking, and he really likes for me to be at home and giving him my attention in the evenings because, he works during the day, and when he comes home, he wants to spend time with me. you know, I can't fault him for that. And so, doing these every Saturday night, he feels like are really kind of cramping our style as a couple. And he's like, well, I want to spend time with you, before I go to bed because he works on Sundays. And so he's not really a fan of me doing these at the time slot that I'm doing them. And so, what could I do? I like doing the shows on Saturday nights, but, it's my responsibility to obey my husband. And so for the foreseeable future, we're going to be moving the show from once, every Saturday to once a month. And so it's not ideal, but I think that it'll be good. It'll allow me to do longer streams. My one Saturday that I do, because if you're a regular, then I don't normally do for 2 hours. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit more, um, since I'm not going to be back for about 4 weeks. And so yes, that is going to be happening. And so yeah, I am not just up here, faking the funk for you guys. I am literally doing what I'm saying. I'm actually trying to be the good role model and the good example that I preach and that I believe in. And I think that it's good for women to get on their husband's program instead of the husband, getting on the wife's program. And so my husband wants me to spend time with him at night, and that's what I'm going to do. And so I'm still going to see you guys, but it'll just be once a month on Saturday nights right here. But of course, you can still find me on my channel, and that's where I'm more active. And so yes, but without further ado, that concludes how to fix the homelessness crisis in a week on Candid Conversations with a Housewife. And so I thank everyone for tuning in and for commenting and for joining the panel. Thank you to Josh. Thank you to Lost in Translation, Grooming and Reviews, to Stacy. Um, Gosh, who else was here? Oh, to R Payne, to Dwayne, to yeah, that's R Payne. Oh, to Alex, even though we had quite a few differences. To EAE, to Daft Bully, Crystal, and everyone else. Oh, brother Daniel. To everybody who was here, thank you so much. And I will not see you next week, but I will see you next month. And so, have a very wonderful December. And I look really forward to talking to you next time. So you have a great night, and be sure to get to church tomorrow because your pastor might talk about homelessness. All right, y'all. Good night.